In this demo, we'll review the process of approving requisitions in OpenLMIS. From the home screen, click on Requisitions on the navigation bar and select Approve. This will bring you to the Approve Requisition screen, where you'll see all of the requisitions awaiting your approval. The requisitions that show up in this queue are dependent on your user permissions. For each requisition, you'll see the program that it's related to, as well as the facility, reporting period, the reporting period start and end date, as well as the dates that it was submitted and authorized. Each requisition will also include an indicator to note whether or not this is an emergency requisition or a regular periodic requisition. As you can see with this check mark in the emergency column, that indicates that this is an emergency requisition. And you'll also have an indication of whether or not you have an offline copy of this requisition on your particular device. So as I mentioned, when we went through the create and submit requisition demo, all of the requisition data is saved locally on your device as you're working, so that you can continue to work even if you lose internet connection. So anything that you've done on your device, you would have this offline copy of it. Additionally, you can update the sort or the way that the requisitions are filtered in order to help you find the specific one that you're looking for, or to see the ones that might need you to take action the most quickly. So by default, the requisitions listed are sorted by the newest authorized, so the most recent are on top, and that's based on this date authorized, you can see right here. In our workflow, the submission and authorization is combined. They're not two separate steps, so those will be the same. In other workflows, sometimes those are separate steps, so they may be two different dates. And the requisitions would not show up in the approval queue until they were authorized. But for our purposes, it's one step altogether, so once you submit it and authorize. If I wanted to see the requisitions that were the oldest authorized, I could change the sort to see the ones that were the oldest and therefore had been waiting for my approval for the longest period of time. One thing you may note, however, is that even when I switched the authorization to the oldest authorized sort, the emergency requisition stayed on the top. So if it's an emergency requisition, the system assumes that that will need your attention most immediately, and that will always stay at the top of your list. In addition to updating the sort, I also have the ability to filter by program. So since we only have one program, we have that filter set up by default, but if we had multiple programs, we could use this filter to limit the requisitions that we were seeing to the requisitions related to any specific program at a time. So there are a few different ways that you can approve a requisition. You can approve a requisition individually, and you can also approve requisitions in a batch. So we'll go through both of those processes, as well as rejecting a requisition. So we'll start by reviewing and approving a single requisition. To do that, we just need to click View Requisition in the Actions column. And that will bring up the Approve Requisition screen, where you can see the requisition along with all of the requisition data that was entered. So again, we can see the requisition type, so that this is an emergency requisition, the facility information, and all of the data on the product grid. So if you recall from the previous demo, the emergency requisitions are more limited. They don't have all of the routine reporting information, and we only had to include the products that we wanted to place the emergency order for, as well as the requested quantity. So on this approval screen, I'm seeing all of the data that was entered there, so I can see the products, I can see the requested quantity, but I can't actually edit that. I can, however, update the approved quantity if I don't agree with the requested quantity. So the approved quantity is what will actually be placed in the order. And by default, the system takes the requested quantity as the approved quantity. But if I wanted to change that, I could say instead of 1,000 of the alcohol for hand rub, we only want 500. I can also add additional remarks if I want to provide any additional explanation about the approved quantity. Once I'm finished reviewing the requisition and updating any approved quantities that I want to make changes to, I can approve the requisition by clicking Approve. And again, the system will ask me to confirm that I want to approve, since once I approve, then this will move to the next stage and I won't have the ability to make any further changes or further review. So when I click Approve, then I get the notification that the requisition has been approved, and you can see that that requisition no longer shows up in my approval queue. Now, I also mentioned that we could approve requisitions as a batch. So if I wanted to review and approve multiple requisitions at the same time, I can select multiple requisitions. And these requisitions must be of the same program in order to do a batch approval. And once I have selected all of the requisitions that I want to approve, I can click, instead of the individual view requisition, I'll click the view selected requisitions in the bottom right. And that will bring me to this summary approve requisition screen, where I'll have a list of all of the products included on both of the requisitions. And I'll have the approved quantity and cost for each of the facilities that I've included in the selected requisitions. So I can see for any products that were included on that facility's requisition, I'll see what the approved quantity was. And again, the system automatically takes the requested quantity and defaults that as the approved quantity, so you know that this is showing initially the requested quantity. So I can review that from here. And you may see that there may be blank rows if this facility doesn't manage some of these products, then that row will just be blank for the facility. If the product is managed at a facility, but the facility skipped it, it will say skipped. And again, we have the approved quantities for any products that were included on the requisition. And if there were prices defined for the different products, you would see the cost for both the facility individually for each product, as well as the facility's total cost. And you would also see overall totals in terms of quantity of a product, as well as cost of that product for all of the requisitions that were selected, as well as the total cost of all of the requisitions and all of the products selected. So it gives you that summary and overall view. So if you wanted to look at all of the requisitions for a specific district, perhaps, you could select the requisitions from each of those facilities and get a high-level overview for you to review quickly, as well as see what that aggregate totals, as well as see what those aggregate totals were for all of the facilities in the district. Now, if you wanted to make any changes to this, so perhaps, say, oh, I'm only going to approve 50 for this particular product, and I don't want to approve any for this particular product, you can go ahead and make any of those changes from this screen, and when you approve, those will be applied. If at any point you had made changes and you want to go back to what the original quantities were, you can click this revert button. And so this will wipe out all of the changes you made and bring you back to the initial state with the original requested quantities. So if I click revert, you can see that now those numbers are back to what they had been originally when we looked at it. Once I'm happy with everything, I can click approve. And again, I'll get that confirmation message to ensure that I'm ready to approve, because again, once I approve them, I can't make any further changes. And I'll click OK. And now you can see 2 requisitions were approved when I did the batch approval. And you can see that now I only have the 1 requisition left out of the 4 that I had when we first started, since I've approved 3 of them now. The final thing I want to show you for approving requisitions is rejecting a requisition. So if I click View Requisition for this individual requisition, I'll see that requisition page displayed. So this is a regular requisition, so I'll see the full product grid with all of the routine reporting data, which again, I won't be able to edit at this point. I can just view it and see what was submitted. And I do have this ability to update the approved quantity and add any additional remarks. So if there was anything problematic with this requisition, anything that I wasn't happy with, besides wanting to update the approved quantity that I can do from here, I can reject the requisition and send that back to the submission stage for the facility staff to review and update and resubmit. So for example, if I got this requisition in my approval queue and was reviewing it and saw that there was only this 1 product that had been reported on and none of the other products had any data, they'd all been skipped, that seems unlikely. That's probably not an accurate requisition for the facility. So I can add a comment and note that too many of the products have been skipped and that they should complete their full requisition. And then I can reject that requisition and confirm that I want to reject it. So I'll get that notification, again confirming that the requisition has been rejected and I don't have any more waiting in my queue. If I go back to the Create Authorized screen, however, I can find that requisition and I'll see that here that appears back on this list at a rejected status. And the system will also send a notification to the users who are responsible for submitting those requisitions that it's been rejected, so they'll know that it had been rejected and that they should come into the system to update it. So if I click Proceed on that requisition, I can see now that I have this comment, I can see that that was from a specific user on a specific date, and that that happened at the point when it was rejected. And it's like, know that there's a reason that this requisition was rejected, and it was because it wasn't completed. And so from here, I would be able to make those changes. So we'll just quickly add some additional information. Make sure there are no errors. And I'll add a requested quantity for this product as well. And so once I actually went through and made all of the changes that I needed to make to address the comments that were provided when the requisition was rejected, I can again submit and authorize. So I can resubmit that requisition once I've addressed all of the concerns. And so now again, that has disappeared from my initiate report and requisition screen. And if I go back to the approval, now I can see that that's shown back up in the approval queue for me to review the updated requisition and approve. And that concludes our requisition approval demonstration.